Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Fraser Catton, as opposed to the Fraser that she was talking about. But a great way to remind us once again of that our kids are, the next generation, but they're also this generation as well. They are the current church and the future church, and we're going to touch a little bit on that in our message today. We've been going through a series looking at women in Scripture and the lessons that they teach us. And today we're looking at a lady which you may not know too well. Perhaps you do. Her name is Jehosheba. And she's mentioned about 3 times, all in the same passage. So if you've got Bibles, I want to invite you to open up to 2 Kings chapter 11. Or if you have one of the blue aqua-coloured Bibles, page 323. One of these ones. And we're going to read just a few verses. 2 Kings chapter 11, starting in verse 1. It says this: When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she proceeded to destroy the whole royal family. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Jehoram and sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the royal princes who were about to be murdered. She put him and his nurse in a bedroom to hide him from Athaliah, so he was not killed. He remained hidden with his nurse at the temple of the Lord for 6 years, while Athaliah ruled the land. Encouraging little passage, isn't it? It's heartwarming and lovely. But let me give you some context as to what has been happening leading up to this point. So, David was king of Israel, and then his son Solomon was king, and then after Solomon, it split into 2. Israel in the north and Judah in the south. Now, here, Judah's this side, Israel's this side. We jump down a few generations, around 50 years after David had died, and we reach this point where in Judah, we have King Jehoshaphat, and in Israel, we have King Ahab, who was just a piece of work. And he married Jezebel, who was also a piece of work. These guys, they embodied evil. Just nasty people who did incredibly destructive things to everything they seemed to touch. So this is going on. 20 years later, Ahab passes away, and his son, Ahaziah, now that's got an asterisk because this is just to make it less confusing, hopefully. We're going to talk about 2 Ahaziahs. So the one with the asterisk is of Israel. So he becomes king, and he's Ahab's son. And then not too long after that, we have King Jehoshaphat passing away, and his son Jehoram becomes king. Now, Jehoram is a piece of work. There's a bunch of pieces of work in this sermon. Jehoram, as soon as he becomes king, the first thing he does is he knocks off all his family. And then he marries Queen Athaliah, who is actually the daughter of King Ahab. So we've got Israel joining up with marriage to Judah. And we don't know if Athaliah is Jezebel's daughter, but it seems like she had some of Jezebel's influence in her. These 2 guys get married, but then the Philistines come in and they take out Jehoram and all his family. The only person that's left is his son, Ahaziah. Pretty cool, isn't it? Fun listening, fun reading. So, Ahaziah, as we're told, he becomes friends with King Joram. So this king over here of Israel, King Ahaziah, we're actually told he falls off his balcony and falls into the kind of lattice roofwork of the below floor and gets injured. And while he's injured, Elijah comes to him and says, basically, God says, you're not going to recover. So he dies, and his brother, King Joram, becomes king. And he actually it seems like he's friends with King Ahaziah over here. They go to war together, they plan war, and they go and fight together. Joram gets injured, and so Ahaziah goes, I'm going to go and see him while he's injured and visit him. Like a hospital visit, but to his palace. And so he goes over, and he visits him, and while he's there, this guy called Jehu arrives. Now, Jehu comes, and his goal basically is to kill King Joram. So he does that. He kills him, but then he realizes, Ahaziah is here too. Might kill him as well. So he kills him, and then he actually becomes king, but he ends up killing Ahaziah, Joram, Jezebel, Ahaziah's relatives, and the rest of Ahab's family. This is nuts, isn't it? Like, it's just a real crazy scenario. As that's happening, we have King Ahaziah here from Judah. He is killed by Jehu, and he doesn't have any other family apart from a few kids that we're told of. And so when he is killed, what happens is Athaliah goes, well, hang on, there's a void. Someone needs to rule this nation, and she steps into that space. And she then puts herself as queen, and whether she learnt from her husband, we're not sure, but the first thing she does is exactly what he did when he became king, and she starts to take out all of the royal family. And that's where we get to in chapter 11 of 2 Kings. Now, see up on the left there, it has this dotted line. That represents King David's line. The line that follows down from David and his royal family line as it comes through and they become kings. And that's important because back in Samuel, God had said to David, your house and your kingdom will endure forever before me. Your throne will be established forever. And so when we look at what's happening, how will the line of David, how will God's promise continue to be kept if there's no heir? And that's where this woman of grace and grit enters, and we meet Jehosheba. She's married to a priest, Jehoiada, and she's living proof that cycles can be broken within one generation, because she's actually the sister of Ahaziah. She's the daughter of Jehoram. And what she does is she sees what's going on and she says, all right, we need to do something here. And so she steps in and she takes King Joash from all the bloodshed that's taken place and she puts him into protective custody. Now, that's pretty intense. So just to change the scenario for a second. All right, kittens, cute little things. All right, everyone okay? We're tracking all right? So what can we learn from Jehosheba? What do we get out of this story from what she has done and how she responds? And I want to suggest there are a few things that we can learn from this incredible woman. In the carnage and the crazy news cycle of murder, all of this happens within a space of about 12 years. So all of that is roughly about 12 years' time that all of that takes place. So it is actually happening pretty quickly, pretty fast. There's a lot going on. And amongst all of that craziness and the constant news of kind of rulers and people trying to take over and people dying and people strategizing and planning and coups and all of that, she's able to actually see beyond all of that. She's able to look past what is right in front of her to see that there is something more important that is happening here and something that's at play. And she knew the importance of that lineage. And she was willing to risk everything in order to keep it going. It said a descendant of David would rule forever. And if you follow it down, that is true. We look in Matthew, we see a lineage, the ancestry of Jesus. And yes, we know he came from King David, and it came through that line that Jesus was born. So, Jehosheba is able to see beyond just what's in front of her and be able to see this bigger picture of what's taking place. But she's also got this incredible ability to see what's going on and do something about it and take Joash, this little kid, out of a place that is in turmoil and where there is all this stuff happening and give him refuge. As we read a bit further on in chapter 11, chapter 12, we find out what Athaliah does during her reign. And she sets up temples to Baal in Jerusalem. She institutes high priests to Baal. There's all this stuff that is going on around them. But Jehosheba has taken Joash and brought him into a place where he is protected, where he is safe, where he can grow, where he can learn without being impacted, without being distracted, without being drawn into what's going on outside. Plus, physically, he gets to stay alive because of what she did. The nation around them is burning to the ground spiritually. It's burning to the ground morally. And Jehosheba has this foresight to take this little boy and keep him in this refuge of the temple. And we know she did a good job because we get to see how Joash reigned. We're told that Joash, and we haven't come across this sentence for a while in the book of Kings, but it says, Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years Jehoiada the priest instructed him. So what Jehosheba and Jehoiada did, they obviously did something into this little boy's life where they taught him, where they loved him, where they nurtured him, where they walked beside him and guided him into this place where he was able to follow God as he became a young man. What's interesting, though, is as you read further, and maybe this afternoon you can do some afternoon reading, it's very interesting the way this is worded. Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years, not of his life, all the years that Jehoiada the priest was with him. And we find out later on that this influence must have been so huge on him because when Jehoiada passes away, Joash falls away from God. This couple who has been walking beside him and mentoring him and guiding him and being that kind of that rock, that solid foundation in their life, as soon as they disappear, it seems like Joash's life just falls apart. He gets influenced by other people, and all of a sudden, the right that he was doing in the eyes of the Lord doesn't become right anymore, and he starts going his own way. So for 6 years, they're instructing him, they're teaching him, they're getting him ready for life outside the temple, which is the next point. Jehosheba prepares Joash for his arrival as king of Judah. She takes time to train him, and this training had a purpose. They're waiting patiently, but not without doing anything. In the waiting, they are preparing and training him to be king and to be ready for his arrival as king. So this happens 7 years when he's 7 years old. So Jehoiada brought out the king's son and put the crown on him. He presented him with a copy of the covenant, the law, which once again hadn't been done for quite a few generations. She presented him with a copy of the covenant of the law and proclaimed him king. They anointed him, and the people clapped their hands and shouted, "Long live the king!" Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign. Read through this story, and it's at this point Athaliah comes out and she finds out what's going on. And she loses her head. She just goes nuts. She's like, treason, this is wrong. And then they take her and she loses her head, literally. and we have a bit more death in the story. But Jehosheba leaves this legacy of seeing the bigger picture, creating a safe space, speaking into Joshua's life, and waiting for his arrival as king. So what relevance does that have for us today? You can probably see some good connections there, but I want to suggest 4 things that we can learn from her. Our calling as people who are here, listening to the word of God, encouraging each other, walking with each other, followers of Jesus, or maybe soon to be followers of Jesus, can I suggest that we're called to own it, we're called to share it, we're called to be a place of refuge, to be real and walk close, and to stay ready and to stay hopeful. Let me just quickly unpack these. When Jehosheba, when she did what she did, she must have known about this promise that God made to David. She must have known about the importance of that lineage. And so she took ownership of the situation and stepped in to protect it when it was under threat. She didn't have to. She didn't need to. But there was something in her that said, hey, I need to do something about this. This is important. This matters. And my guess is that if you're here or if you're listening to this, that you are either interested in or have made some kind of decision in relation to Jesus and the gospel. And the gospel is, if you've forgotten, let me remind you, the gospel is good news. It is the news that while we decided to go our own way, God loved us so much that he sent his son to reveal that love and show us what that love looks like. That if we choose to follow him, that he makes us right again with God. He reconciles us with God, and we have this hope and this future that means that this life is not all that there is. But in this life that we have a God who is wanting to walk beside us and walk with us and forgive us and empower us and use us for good things. That is good news, no matter what situation you're in, no matter what you came here today with. The gospel is good news for you. Have you owned that? Is that yours or is it your parents'? Is that yours or is it your grandparents'? Is that yours or is it your school's view or what the guy up the front says? Is the gospel, the good news of Jesus, something that you have taken on for yourself? And if it is it something that you're willing to step outside of your comfort zone, just like Jehosheba did, in order to protect it and advance it and grow it? It's not something that Jesus asks us to keep to ourselves. During the Middle Ages, there was a group of people called the Waldenses. And if you've been in Pathfinders long enough, you probably might have heard of these guys. The Waldenses were this group of people who, when they didn't have public access to the Bible, they had made a translation, and they had this, and they just treasured it. They read it, they memorized it, they shared it. But at the time, the Catholic Church at the time did not like what they were doing, and so they were persecuted. And these guys moved into the mountains, the Piedmont Alps, in kind of corner of France, Switzerland, and Italy. And they're up there hiding in these caves with their scriptures, reading them, and they would make little recce's down into the little villages to share the good news of Jesus, and then they'd come back and hide back in the caves. And as the armies discovered them, they would kind of move into where they were, and so they'd have to move higher into the mountains or further away into these places where they were hopefully safe. But while they were hiding there, they weren't just hiding, protecting themselves. They were actually willing to go out into villages and keep sharing this good news that they'd discovered about Jesus and about what were revealed to him in the Bible. So where are you at with Jesus? Where's your walk with Jesus? Have you made a decision to follow him? And if you haven't, but you're interested, please come and see me. But if you have made that decision, and then the question is, are you willing to step outside of what you're comfortable with, like Jehosheba did, to protect that and advance that and share that with others? Another thing we learn, be a refuge. Be a safe place for people. Jehosheba, I love what she did. In the inferno of all that was happening around her, the evil of this nation, she actually took this little kid, this probably 1-year-old boy, and brought him into the temple. Who lived in the temple at that point? It was the presence of God. She took him into this place where God was, and they were surrounded by people who loved God and were following God and were reading the scriptures that they had, the covenant. She was a refuge, and the temple was a refuge from all that was going on outside. After the 2009 Black Saturday bushfires, the Royal Commission looked into how can we protect people from bushfires when they come. And one of the things that they decided to do was build these bushfire community refuge places. And basically these were these specially designed structures in places that were high bushfire prone, where as a last resort, you could go there in the hope of finding somewhere that was safe from the embers, from the flames, from the smoke. And there's a few of these around the fringes of Melbourne. But that was the temple for Joash. In the New Testament, that safe place was Jesus, as he walked with people and spent time with the kids. And people were able to go to him to find peace and healing and hope. Further on, it's that place of refuge is the New Testament church. These people who are filled with the Spirit, and everywhere they go, people are changed, people are hearing good news, people are responding, and people are attracted to this because there's something nice about it. Is that what our city needs? Is that what our country needs? Is that what our friends and our family need? A safe place where they can be themselves, where they can ask questions about faith, where they can go and know that they'll be loved and accepted, and they'll have a chance to actually explore who Jesus is and what Jesus is like. Maybe that's what you need as well. Jehosheba encourages us to be not that building, but those people. To be the people who are welcoming, who are accepting, who are loving, and who are this non-anxious presence of Jesus in a world that just is frenetic and hectic. Third thing, be real, walk close. Or to put that a different way, disciple others through your presence and through your practice. We heard that Jehosheba spoke into Joash's life and obviously taught him things as he grew up. But I can only imagine that she loved God, that she loved the covenant. Otherwise, she probably would not have done what she did. But because she did that, she was able to share with Joash from a place that was real and genuine, not pretend or this is what you should be doing, because this is what it says. It's more, this is, like Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ. And that's a big call to make. But if you're able to say that, it means that you are doing your best to walk with Jesus every day, to follow him. And some days we do that well, some days we don't. But there's something powerful when you disciple someone else and you let them see what it's like to walk with Jesus. And that can be tough because it means they get to see you on your good days when your faith is strong, and they get to see you on your weekdays when things don't go as well and you lose your temper or you get frustrated or whatever it might be. But that's what it looks like to be real and to walk close is you let someone else see what it's like to follow Jesus, the wins, the fails. It's challenging, but it's rewarding, and it's what Jesus asked us to do, to go and make disciples. The cool thing is you're never too young to matter, and you're never too old to make a difference. A strange thing happened a few weeks ago. I was at home doing some work, and I was thinking about a guy who made a big difference in a lot of people's lives. Later that night, Julia came home and said, did you hear? This guy's name was Pastor Bob Possingham. She said, did you hear that Pastor Bob Possingham passed away? I was like, no, I was just thinking about him this afternoon. We grew up mostly in Queensland, and this guy was just a warrior for God. He was the most gentle, loving, happy guy. He was always smiling no matter what was going on. He loved Jesus with everything that he had. He baptized Julie, and as the news of his passing came up, a lot of people started to share the impact that he'd had on their lives. And he died, I think, in his 80s. But even then, he would still come up beside people and encourage them and walk with them and pray with them. One of my friends up in Brisbane, his parents were married by Pastor Bob. The family kids were dedicated by him. They were baptized by him. He did their wedding. And all along this way, of all these different experiences in their lives, he's been this guy who was just there with them. And he wasn't a big charismatic leader. He was just a genuine, faithful follower of Jesus who loved God and loved people and was willing to share his life with them. He was there with his presence, and he was there with his practice. He was just a real, genuine follower of Jesus. Do you have a Pastor Bob in your life? Do you have a Jehosheba? Do you have a Joash? Someone that you're able to speak into, to encourage, to walk with? Have you ever asked God, is there someone you'd like me to come alongside? Or have you ever asked God, is there someone who can walk beside me and mentor me in my walk? You're never too young to matter. You're never too old to make a difference. Which brings us to our last point. Stay ready, stay hopeful. Or to put it a different way, joyfully prepare for Jesus' return as king. You know, Jehosheba was prepping Josiah to be this young kid who would one day take the throne and be the king of Judah. And her hope was that he would reign well, that he would follow God, he'd be obedient to him, he'd bring in the worship of God, he'd bring in peace to the nation. They waited for that day, they prepared for it, and we are too. But we live in this weird thing of the now but not yet. The now is that Jesus is here, he is with us, and that the Holy Spirit has this desire to live in our lives and transform us and use us to do good things in the world. But there is also the not yet of everything is not quite right. You know that. Everything is not quite perfect yet. God still has so much that he is going to restore and renew. And when he does come back, everything will be made new like that. But we're in the not yet phase. So how do you live in that tension? How do you live in that space of Jesus is good, the gospel is such good news, but we are still waiting for Jesus to return to make all things new? One idea is to stay ready, like Jehosheba, to see the bigger picture, to be able to not let the minutiae of daily life crowd out the good news that Jesus is king and that he is coming back soon. He's going to do that, just as his promise to keep the line of David to endure forever. His promise to come back is one that he's also going to make sure happens. So 4 things. And I could do my best to come up with some clever way of framing this and encouraging you to do something about it. But at the end of the day, that's not my job. That's God's. So as we sing our final song that talks about Jesus coming and the Holy Spirit filling us and using us to, like Jehosheba, make a difference in our city, in our country, in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces, I want to invite you to open yourself up to God and just ask, what do you want me to do? Which of these do you want me to step into, God? Which of these is something that you're asking me this week to get real with, to pray about, to consider, and to put into practice?